we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
This is Jim Lorimer. I'm a
Roll call first, okay. Janie, can you do a roll call, please?
Brandon Lawmeister.
Here.
Tim Gerlich. Dave Amspoker.
Tim's online, I see him.
Yes.
Okay. Dave Amspoker's here.
Gene, I don't know if your mic is picking up still.
Yeah.
John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not John, but. We'll start again. Brandon Lawmeister.
Here.
Tim Gerlich.
Here.
Dave Amspoker.
Here.
Paul Gaines.
Here.
John Stutzman.
Here.
James Lorimer.
here.
And Tom Beller.
Present.
And we have a quorum.
Okay, now can we stand and pledge allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a hybrid meeting. We've got commissioners reporting online, and we also have commissioners here at the council chambers. Janie, did anybody sign up to address the commission?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's move forward then to reports.
Chairman,
We've got new business. Well, yeah, we have to review the minutes from August. It's been so long, I've forgotten how to do this. We'll entertain a motion for acceptance of the minutes for last meeting, or are there any corrections that anybody's seen?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the meetings as presented.
This is
Meeting minutes.
for August meeting.
I second the motion.
It's been
Yes.
moved and seconded that we accept the minutes from the August 15th meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Very well. Now, we already talked about consideration of comments from the public. We have one visitor today. It doesn't appear that we have any comments. And Janie, you said you've not been contacted?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to new business. There's on the agenda that we possibly delay the project of the wind cones being postponed. You want to talk about that for us?
Janie, I don't know if you're aware, but we cannot hear anything.
I'm sorry?
You need to move the mic closer to your mouth, sir.
And we can't see Chambers either.
Yep.
IT department, are you there? Lisa, can you see us now?
Yes, we can see you now.
Okay,
On a small screen, yes.
okay. Give you guys a little background. In our actual master plan, we've had the wing cone project. We have 2 wing cones located inside of our primary runway's object-free area. Some years back, or several years back, wing cones were allowed to be inside the runway object-free areas, but they're not allowed to be inside the runway safety areas. Well, back in our early 2000s, the FAA actually made that adjustment. It hasn't really been high on their priority list. So with that project, we were looking at using the bipartisan infrastructure bill money. We received around $159,000 for the next 4 years of those funds, 4 to 5 years of those funds, to where we could implement those to capital projects. That being said, we do have a few things that are popping up. One thing is that we've had some events over the summer, either during the monsoon season, where we had to do some emergency closures, and we've also had some one single aircraft event where we had to do an emergency closure. So we kind of started to sit back, and we're looking at, from a risk management standpoint, what will be better for our flying community and our staff that works out on the actual physical runway. And one of the problems that kind of popped up with right now with what they're doing is that whenever they have to close down a runway, they have to use these large plastic X's. So for one individual in a high wind situation, let's just say if it occurs on a Saturday or Sunday where it takes a little while for backup staff to get there and assist them with doing emergency closure, you have a single individual getting these very large, very heavy X's out there, putting them on the runway designation markers, and then they have to take these sandbags and then place them on top of the X's. With the wind blowing, that could be extremely difficult. So we sat back and we're going, okay, let's look at what we can do from my past experience, what other airports use. And out there, they have these runway closure boxes. And these are basically trailer closure boxes with generators on them, and large X's that with a flip of a button, they'll raise them up to a certain degree angle, and then you flip a box and they'll start flashing. They'll start flashing on and off, and the FAA has okayed for those to be symbolized as a runway closure. These are much easier. I've used them in the past to set them up at my former job, and to set up just one of these X boxes takes putting it on the back of or connecting the trailer to the back of a vehicle, getting out there, setting it up can take less than 10 minutes for one person to do. If it's a tandem trailer, getting all X boxes out there really takes maybe 15 minutes.
So each of these boxes has its own, it's a self-contained unit. It's a trailer with the box. You hook it up, drive it out, drop it off, turn it on, that kind of thing.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir. So we're looking at that, and we're going, okay, from a safety perspective, what is more likely to happen? With an emergency closure, where you have a pilot that's inbound, we have an emergency closure, so they may not be focused on really double checking the NOTAMs when they're only 10, 15 miles out. What is more likely to occur? An aircraft landing on a closed runway, or an aircraft that deviates over 200 feet off the runway into the grass and maybe clipping one of these wing cones. So we're kind of viewing it from that standpoint. What is the high risk? Also, one of the beautiful things about these runway closure boxes, even at night, they still flash. So they're visible, able to be seen by pilots from a much further distance at night. Instead of a pilot, because some pilots do land on our airfield without turning on the airfield lights, as long as they can see the runway environment. With these runway flashing X's, they work even when the runway lights are off, and basically says, hey, this runway's closed. Instead of coming in at night, low light conditions, and they're trying to view basically a yellow X at night on the white designators may be kind of difficult. So this really displays the closure a little bit better. So we're kind of looking at both of these items. We do still see a need to get the wind cones replaced, and we do have the funding and money budgeted for that, but with inflation, there is a chance it could be a little bit over. We're also toying with the idea of purchasing, maybe possibly further delaying the wind cone project out, using those funds to purchase a couple of these closure boxes, and using those a lot sooner than later to get that out there for purchasing, so we could do proper closures within a timely period and also better notify the pilots. And this is one of those where if it looks like the runway wind cones will be a little bit more expensive, or if there's just a really pressing need where we look at it, we say, you know what, for better safety purposes, it may be best to go ahead and go after these runway closure boxes, and we'll start implementing that conversation with the FAA and our ASIP planners on switching this around a little bit. And we'd like to bring this forward to you guys for possible discussion and recommendation on either leaving the wind cones where they're at, or possibly seeking at switching out that project with purchasing runway closure boxes and looking at pushing the wind cones further back to a later date.
Do you have pictures of the X out boxes?
No, I probably should have gotten that.
You showed them to me, and it's a trailer on wheels that they just hook up to a vehicle and pull out there. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If I get the internet to come up, it'll only take me just a few seconds to bring up a picture of one of those closure boxes for you.
Also, when's the last time we had an aircraft leave the runway the distance that it would take to hit the wind cone uprights?
To my knowledge of this airport, I do not have anything on record for that. And it's very rare for an aircraft to go that far out into an object-free area of a runway. And
Doug, is it, forgive me if I didn't hear this, is it just a new standard they have, or is it to be further away or from our width of runway? Is that what they're suggesting? It's not obviously a regulation, I guess, because we would be doing it if it were.
It is a regulation.
Oh, okay.
It's not very as high on the list as.
Okay. They're not going to
as
hold
others
funds
are.
from us if we don't have our wind cones in the right spot or something.
No.
Okay.
We've kind of had preliminary discussions, and they're saying, yeah, we'll be willing to look at possibly pushing that back. Willing to look at it is not a guarantee.
Right.
Excuse me.
I haven't looked at it's been a little while since I've been on the runway actually out there. So is the orange dye or the visibility of these wind cones still decent, or are these some of that are really faded badly? That was the problem I had with them a while back.
No, we try to keep an eye on those and rotate them out.
Okay.
The sun out here it really turns
Oh, yeah.
from a bright orange to a white color.
Yeah.
You do have options of going with a safety orange or a white wind cone, but the primary use of this project for the wind cone project is just taking them and moving them outside
Right.
of the object-free area.
I would just adding that in there too. If that would be, I would be probably okay if this weren't moved right now, as long as they were nice and bright. You know, that's, I know it's a separate issue, but you said you're rotating them out to make sure they're visible. So,
So these pictures I have up here is actually really a good demonstration, a good idea. These two lighted, or really three lighted, are those runway closure X boxes we've been looking at for a while.
This is basically just one of those generators that you'd see the lights pop up with just with a giant X on it.
Yes. And out here is what we currently use, that kind of plastic. Let's put it this way. This is, for our environment, if we just place this down, if we get a substantial amount of winds, or if we're still having water where it's crossing the runway, carrying debris, it's just going to pick this up and move it. So we have to often grab those X's and then also grab the sandbags at the same time. And for one, it's usually a two-person job to get this done. Whereas the runway closure boxes, It's a one-person.
Oh, no, this is vastly superior. Well, a question I've got, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah,
I was going to say that this, of course, it is a tall vertical thing, and you did bring up wind. I'm sure they're designed to be on a runway, but our winds are pretty hefty out here. Do you know what they're rated at by chance, or if they're going to be a problem in this area?
Each one is, and rated a little bit differently.
Okay.
But yeah, you're easily looking at 75, 100 miles per hour.
It's what they're rated at?
Yeah, where
Okay.
a lot, some of these are rated at.
That should cut most of it.
They're pretty substantial. They're pretty hefty.
Okay.
I know some other airports, they'll actually put them up in the middle of hurricanes.
Okay.
well, I know that we've needed the X-out boxes earlier this year when an airplane kind of didn't make a very good landing. Are there other times when it's been needed?
Well, with the incident with the smaller aircraft, where we had a small aircraft incident, we actually had to pay attention to the radios. We had one individual that was inbound, already read through all their information beforehand, was inbound, and we had to tell them the runway's closed, and they said, thank you very much. And they had to look at, instead of doing a touch and go on our runway, go to another airport. They're going to do a single touch and go, and then they were going to leave.
I'm also aware of somebody that noticed the event and chose to land on 3-5.
Well, even with that, due to the fact we have that runway closed and people, emergency vehicles are moving back and forth through those areas, it just opened up a hazard. It opened up a hazard for the event. Another example was after a severe monsoon, and I'll give the guys credit. The maintenance guys have done a real good job with cleaning up the ditches and everything, where we don't have as much debris coming across the runway, but where we did have debris coming across the runway, and we still had a pilot that wanted to land on the runways even though they were closed. And
Were they X'd out at the time?
no, because we were grabbing everything, trying to get it moving as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And these larger X boxes or our current style just take so much time.
I think this is a very good, I am for this. Plus, you never know when an accident's going to happen, whether we've had one or two only. We still could have any kind of incident out there that we have to hurry up and close the runway, or who knows what could happen out there. Other question is, when they're being repaved, when you have areas that are out there if they're doing work, does that company bring their own big stuff, the equipment to officially close the runway?
For their contracts, we do that.
That's what they do? Okay.
We do that. We do request that.
Okay.
We do request that for closures for any type of significant maintenance activities. These runway closure boxes will be used also. Let's just say if when it comes to the future ADOT P06 608 application for pavement rejuvenation, these runway closure boxes will be used in that situation too.
Do you have adequate storage for the runway closure boxes?
We do.
How much
We
do they
We'll put those
cost?
away. Well, for two, we discovered that they're really not too bad.
Like 55,000, so sure.
55,000
For two.
That's not with taxes.
Is that for both of them or for one each?
That's for both two. That is for two.
I
And
like
one
the idea.
option is that
Oh, yeah.
we're also looking at is possibly even discussion of using some of that bill money that's left over if the Winco project doesn't go too far, doesn't cost the entire 159,000 for the grant that we're going to be using for the bill money, then we could use the remainder to help purchase those X boxes and really cut the cost in half. But we just want to have your recommendation if that the Wincombe project does exceed the expected amount, then we may go after these runway closure boxes, or if there really is a need, then we have that option
I think they're worth going for.
for your recommendation.
Yeah.
Tim or John, do you have any comments or questions?
I do not. I think it's a good idea.
Tim?
Yeah, I think the airport's needed these for many years, and we've wanted to get them, so I'm in agreement on this.
The chair will entertain a motion.
Before you do, I just want to reiterate this, that with this possible change, when we go speak to the FAA and ADOT, we're gonna have a discussion on this. They may say you still have to move forward with the wind cones, but they could also turn around and say, no, we could, if you actually show and you prove that that this is a better safety item, then they may okay and allow us to do this minor swap, and we just push back the wind cones another year or two.
Well, the chair will entertain a motion, and hopefully that will be included in the motion. Well, let's not all talk at once.
I was waiting for more formal motion that you were making.
Well, I'm not making it. The chair's open.
Oh,
You can make it.
I'd like to motion to propose to go ahead and acquire these 2 wind cones with or without the possibility of having to kick back the wind cone, the box, excuse me, without kicking back the wind cone acquisition later, an hour later, not being dependent on that decision. Is that confusing enough for everybody?
Yeah.
Do you want to write that down, Janie?
We'll work.
Feel free to paraphrase.
Sorry,
That's my
it's kind
motion.
of complex. We want to leave that option out there
Right.
for the recommendation to
Right.
go after it, so it's a little bit confusing on how to word it.
So would it be that we submit a motion to recommend going after the closure boxes if possible?
That's a great way.
Yes. No, that would cover it, I would think. Yeah.
Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second it if that was the official one. I don't know.
Okay.
You want to second it?
Yeah.
So it's been moved and seconded that we recommend the purchase of the Xbox, X-out boxes. If we can do that without, well, regardless of whether or not the FAA approves, or you want to read that back, Janie? You don't want to, okay.
Do we need to vote on this?
Do we need to vote on it, actually? Do we need to officially vote on this?
Yeah, I mean, you can put your recommendation. We recommend the possibility of replacing the wind cones with the runway closure boxes pending FAA ADOT's
Approval.
approval.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Done.
All in favor, signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And Chair Spoker, I just want to go ahead and say one thing. I apologize. I should have mentioned this beforehand about our new commissioner, Tom Beller, that has joined us. And I know when we were looking through, he has extensive history working here in the city of Kingman, Mojave County. He's very much interested, invested into this community and in the airport, and also predominantly inside the industrial park. I know he's a member of CAMA. And Mr. Beller?
I'm the vice president of CAMA.
Okay,
Vice President.
good.
Kind of get a bond there.
I'm not even sure what CAMA is, so I need
We'll
to
talk.
figure that out. That would be good.
Yeah, for the record,
actually.
if people want to know, CAMA is Kingman and Mojave Manufacturers Association.
All the manufacturers.
Good to know.
It's the industrial park.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I'd heard that acronym before, but I didn't know what it was.
Okay, moving forward, we can have reports from. No. Why not? Because we were on new business, now we're on reports. We are on reports. And I understand Mr. Bennett is not available. So Lisa, are you going to give the report?
I am Commissioner Am Spoker. Good afternoon, Chair Am Spoker and Commissioners. As you were saying, Bennett Bradley is out of the office today, and I know the report that he wrote is included in your agenda and minutes packet, but I'm happy to give a summary, and if you have questions, let me know. Staff has completed the Kingman Industrial Park Business and Retention and expansion survey and impact analysis report. That is off to the designer, and we hope to have that all finalized and edited in the next few days. Bennett will be presenting that report to City Council on January 3rd. If you have any questions about that, let me know. We have 7 projects in the works right now in the industrial park, and details are included in the report, but they include Frito-Lay, Interstate Trailer, ISCO Industries, Stage FX, InSteel, Patriot Rail, and FedEx. Those are all projects either operating right now or in the process of becoming operational. We have 2 current land sales that are in process as well, Project Marine and Project Trainer. Those details are also in your report, but one is 7 acres of land and the other one is a 60,000 square feet facility. That's an expansion of a facility. The City of Kingman, the ChooseKingman.com website has been functional now for about a month. It's ChooseKingman.com. It offers a lot of information, and you can build reports if necessary and send those to prospects. We've already done that. And it includes a lot of data and information for people looking for land to lease or to buy. In addition to that, Bennett and I and the others are working on, and maybe Doug will speak to this as well, but marketing any available land for the airport as well. We have about 4 prospects that are looking to relocate. One is a lot of them are coming out of California, looking to relocate. Project Spirit, we've been chosen. We've gone to round 2 of the site selection process, and Bennett and I are working to submit and get any information they may need from us to the Arizona Commerce Association. And that's a summary. In your report, you'll have the rail numbers as well. I won't go over those, but are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, but Janie, we can't hear the chambers again.
John, can you hear now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Sorry.
There was just
nothing-
dead air, yeah.
There was nothing going on, that's why you couldn't hear anything. Doug was walking, excuse me, the airport manager Breckenridge was walking up to the podium.
Yeah, sorry, how could I say, I always sat back, I did not realize it until I started getting closer to 40 that I'm finally getting old. And I'm starting to come across some issues that I refuse to address at this time, but I'm pretty sure sooner or later I'm going to man up and realize I need to address it. Giving you guys a little bit of update on some airport projects. One thing is for airport staffing, we did hire a new airport operations and maintenance specialist. She was nice enough to come over here, or as we like to say, we stole her from one of our neighboring airports. Her name is Tracy Big John. She does have a lot of airport operations and maintenance experience from her former airport. She also has aircraft rescue and firefighting experience and EMT experience. She brings in a lot of experience into our airport. She's been very much blends in with the culture with the guys that she currently works with at this time. When you see her driving around, please feel free to stop her, introduce yourselves. We're trying to get her out there and introduce as many of the tenants as possible. Just so far within the past few months, she has just been a great team member for us and working with our guys and our tenants.
What airport did she come from?
She came from the Grand Canyon Airport at Peach Springs. She came from that airport, or she left them, or as I like to say, we stole her. She interviewed and we said yes. She was the most qualified candidate, so we stole her. We also have a new security company that's on the airport. We will release an RFP back during the summer, and the most qualified our company that we awarded and received the contract was Blackstone Security. They've been working throughout November and this month at this present time. They've done a pretty good job. They've provided us reports, and this time we actually put in their contract that they have their own vehicles. Now, a lot of people sit back, and I got this question from some individuals in the past why we did not do an RFP. Well, because in the past, we did not require them to have their own vehicle. At the time, we only had a budget less than $50,000. So anything below $50,000, we don't go through an RFP process. But this time we said, you know what? We do want them to have their own vehicles. And that calls the budget to go over $50,000. So we had to go through an RFP process. And we had 4 firms that applied. And through a scoring committee, they were selected as the most qualified firm and also the most financially the lowest bid per hour. So they were selected.
So how many hours a day are they on the airport? And what are those
For the
hours?
week, there are 64 hours total for the week.
64 hours.
64 hours for the week. At night, for the weeknights, they work about 8 hours. I don't want to go into their times exactly. And then through the weekends, they work substantially a little bit longer to accompany.
Was this to help with the issues that were popping up out there with people driving on the taxiways and stuff?
Well, with people that are going on to the airfield at odd hours, they check them, and through their post orders, if there's anything that's really suspicious, then they have the information to notify Mojave County. If it is an aircraft incident, then they do know to call 911. If it's other problems that are not related to a full-blown emergency response, then they're told to notify me, and then we also have a chain down where it's our operations supervisor, Wes Pencart, will be the next phone call. So if we do have, let's say, severe flooding on the airfield, they know to call us so we can immediately start getting our guys out there to clean up and resolve the situation as soon as possible. Or if there's a gate that's not vehicle gate that's not properly closing, then they know to notify us, and then we go out there and we fix the gate as soon as possible.
I have a question, Manager Breckenridge. If there is a gate that's inoperable, whatever, do we contact you direct if we have your number? Who do we contact?
If there's any issues, please feel free to contact me.
Okay.
Please feel free to contact me.
I just want to make sure that's the protocol. I know I have your number and we've communicated on things before. I just want to make sure that's what to do. Okay. Thank you.
Is this security contract, are they armed or?
They are unarmed.
Okay.
They're unarmed. We looked at that and we said, no, it's best, especially in that type of environment with aircraft in the area. And we're going, you know what? No, Mojave County in the past, whenever we called them up, they have responded very fast.
Good.
They have had great response times out there. So we've never had the need to look at any type of arm. So any issues that pop up that look like it could be of criminal in nature, then they immediately call 911 or Mojave County, state it,
I thought
and
that
then
would
get
be
them moving.
KPD and not the sheriff out there, or is there something?
Because the airport actually is within Mojave County. The city of Kingman owns the land, but it falls in Mojave County's jurisdiction.
It's not within the city limits. Continue on with your presentation.
Now for that parcel just north of Arizona, that's approximately around 204,000 square feet area, we've received a property description back from the award. It was given to Jet Yard. Jet Yard is doing their final review of the lease, making some final adjustments. We're kind of fine tuning that. And we're looking at getting that signed here in the near future, very near future, get that rolling and moving. I know there were some issues with the price of construction. Sorry. That kind of slowed them down a little bit, and they also had some issues with some of their contractors, and now that everybody has that addressed, and we're moving this forward full steam. For 4,800 Flight Line Drive, that's, for a lot of people don't realize, that's around a 2.16 acres with a 3,500 square foot hangar on there. We do have that RFP out on the street. We have also placed that on the airport's website. It's also found on the city's website. We are looking for aeronautical businesses to come in, both commercial or other. It is an RFP, so it will be scoring based upon how much it benefits the airport. So if we do have a group that's coming in that's providing a new service that's not at the airport, there's a chance that they're going to be scored a little bit higher. If it's somebody that's just looking at using the property of just storing their aircraft versus an actual business, it's going to sway a little bit more to the business. So we do have that RFP out there. There will be a scoring process going through that once we've received all the proposals. Projects, taxiway, Bravo project is 100%. We do have a meeting coming up with our engineers, and we're just going to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and start moving this forward. We need to move it forward. We need to get that going. We've been sitting on it for a while, hoping that asphalt prices have come down, and it doesn't appear it's came down as much as we want to, so we can at least see how much we could get done, and if need be in the future, see what we could do to address the remainder of the taxiway.
So the asphalt issue is not not an issue at the moment anymore. You're, like you said, you're moving forward. Here we go anyway.
Well, we're going to speak to them about moving it forward.
Okay.
It's still, asphalt prices are still high.
Sure.
We're still hearing from other airports that when they received, they had planned for so much section of their ramp, and when they got their quotes back or their estimates back, it pretty much cut their project size in half. It cut their project size in half. And having discussions with other individual, asphalt prices just don't drop really fast.
If you were to make the taxiway Bravo a little narrower so that it would go further, would that be possible, or would that just throw a big monkey wrench in the works because of engineering?
We can, if the bids come back really high, then we could look at it, go back to council, reject all bids, and then look at seeing about re-engineering to bring it a little bit closer to where we could cover as much as possible.
Would that, so the council has accepted the money at this point, and we have a certain amount of time to use that money for that project, is my understanding. How close are we to running out of that time?
We still have over a year.
And that's for both ends of taxiway Bravo?
The entire. So we're gonna have a conversation with our engineers.
And
within
how
the next
long do you
couple-
think it will take to build taxiway Bravo? Is that a project that's gonna take 9 months?
No, sir. It's only gonna take a few months, three to four max. That's what we're kind of estimating in there. It's not gonna take that substantially amount of time. We will be working with ADOT, who is funding this, and saying, hey, we've looked at this, we're waiting prices to come down, and we're gonna be pushing this forward. So we're gonna keep ADOT very much in the loop. For the terminal landscaping, we have what we believe is resolved the drainage problem on the front side. We do have our facilities, our actual city facilities is kind of taken over with doing a little bit of redesigning on the front. They're working with some additional contractors, because in the past, the contractors, when it came to a lot of dirt work, they rejected it. They're JOCs, so that's why it took so long on that. We went ahead and we did it in-house. I got to give 110% props to our street team that came out and assisted with that and getting at least the drainage resolved, or for the most part resolved. Now we're looking at a company to come in and really make it a little bit nicer, much more presentable, redo some of the sidewalks, redo the awnings coming in, and get that moving forward. They're still in the process of doing a little bit tweaking the designs and having other companies or JOC company come out and take a look at it. For the master drainage study, it's being tied into, actually it's not the Rancho Santa Fe project. It's, well, in a way it is, but for the most part, it's with the industrial park master development plan. I will be going into that a little bit more once I give a little presentation on the master development plan, so you could see how and why the internal airport drainage study is so linked into that industrial park master development plan. Apron painting, we're kind of slowing that down a little bit. It's going to go into the crack ceiling, which is just about 2 lines below that. The actual apron painting, we were looking at some of those smaller spots. We are tagging some of those areas for additional crack seals. We're looking at February. Doing the crack seals, we're going to do the same thing with mastic seal and the larger cracks that are more focused inside of our actual tenant parking areas. And even in the kind of the shootouts or taxiing areas in between the A, Bs, and C hangars. So we are going to be looking at those areas along with the aircraft standard uncovered tie-down park, open tie-down parking areas. T hanger lights, they have been replacing those lights still. They still have a few more to go that they're addressing. And then also going back and looking at fixing some of the lights that have gone out or remaining on for extended periods of time during daylight. Allo Communications, I know this is something that was kind of moving along. We do have a rights of entry. A little bit background on Allo Communications. Allo Communications is installing the fiber optic to buildings and in these structures for free. They will be installing it for free. If a tenant wishes to have it, then they need to contact Allo and work with them on actually coming up with a plan. So we have a rights of entry signed with them. We're sitting down speaking to them about when this is going to take place, when the installation of this fiber optics is going to occur inside the A's, the B's, and the C hangars. They said, well, we can move you guys forward on the list. And we said, no, go ahead. It was best interest to go ahead and make sure you have all the fiber optics installed inside the industrial park and throughout the community before we look at installing hangars. And they said, thank you very much. It's just better off for everybody else. So once they start getting that wrapped up, then we're going to start hearing them come up to us and speak about running that fiber optics inside the hangars. FAA grant status. The ARPA grant, we were looking at using that for reimbursing some of the terminal modifications, mainly with the changes in the air handling units inside of the terminal building. We do have a contractor that came out last month to go ahead and take a look at that, including redoing the bathrooms. But we're about to pull the trigger and just say, let's go ahead and use that to refund some others, such as employee operating costs, and go ahead and get that funding back in. We do have those terminal modifications budgeted for being strictly paid out of the airport's budget, not through grants. So it's just a matter of moving that money forward. The reimbursement is the same amount coming back to the airport. Taxi runway 1735 and taxiway Charlie P608 applications. That's crack sealing on those surfaces and then going back through and putting a basically a seal down to extend the longevity of that pavement, and then turning around and then repainting the markings after they put that application on top. They are still expecting that to occur in April. They have not given us a time. This is an ADOT program. They're handling several other airports throughout Arizona, but they have not given us a definite start date at this time.
We'll have another meeting probably in February or March. Will you have that information by then?
Yes, I can reach out to them. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Draw site. Everybody knows the draw site. Everybody loves it. Our last meeting, we went over through a 90% plans. They're very close, or they're almost at the 100%. They have gotten all their facts and figures and cost estimates, and they have options out there, such as where to deliver the dross material. They've taken that information, and now all that information is in the attorney's hands. I can't go into too much detail about that because the attorneys have to go through, review this, and they have to go back forth to DOJ and then show them the plans, the options, what happens if this happens, where the contingencies are. And if DOJ blesses it and is okay with it, then we can look forward to targeting late spring for the beginning of that project. That's if everything runs smoothly. We want late spring. We don't want any later than that. And just a little bit of information on that, the dross can still be active. So if we put it out in the open and it starts raining and it gets hot, it's going to activate the dross, and then it's going to start smelling like ammonia everywhere. So we're really targeting right there in the late spring when it's the driest time, and we can move this to transport it without it activating.
Are people optimistic about this time frame, this go around?
When I spoke to him, he seemed to be pretty optimistic.
Who, the contractor?
Sir?
The contractor?
The contractor seemed to be pretty
Okay.
optimistic. Haley and Aldridge seemed to be pretty optimistic about this.
Okay.
And he still wants to push for that time. And I said, hey, keep moving it forward. Let's get it going. There is some stuff that's kind of out there, i.e. the transportation, where we have multiple forms of transportation. Nothing set in stone yet on how to transport it off the site, rail, truck, so forth. We also have, they're looking at 2 landfills that will accept this. So it's going to kind of provide a little bit of a bidding war in there, depending on the transportation, some other ideas that could help out with that. So that is moving forward. It's just in a quiet phase once again. Land release project and the master development plan. I am going to go ahead and give a little presentation on that. One second.
And Tim, you guys can't see this presentation. Can you see anything coming out of the chambers here?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
we can see it.
Okay. So the master development plan, when we originally scoped it, we had scoped it for the roughly approximately a little bit less than the 1,800 acres, more like 1,700 acres. We had 2 sections just north of the airfield, right adjacent to our runway approach end. It was completely separated from the other acreage. And it also, when we went back and we really took a look at it, we're like, you know what, this is probably better for aeronautical use. It's, how could I say, it's right off the approach, so you couldn't really have too much really tall buildings that occur in there. And it posed a safety risk. So we're like, you know what, let's go ahead and take that out. We could keep that as aeronautical use for future aeronautical expansion.
What runways was it on all 4?
It's on the approach end of 1735, or on the very northern end.
Okay.
It's the orange area marked on the map. Now, with that, when we went out for the industrial park master development plan, we were looking at a little over 1,700 acres. That's the entire southwestern side, southern side, southeastern, and eastern side. The price came back a little high because this project, the FAA is requesting a lot. They're asking for grading. They're asking for road designs. They're asking for actual plat maps. A lot of heavy lifting engineering. So we went back and we took a look at it, and we made a determination that we need to get as much land released as possible, at the same time start prepping the other half for future development. So with the 700 acres on the southwestern side, we went a little bit further out than Rancho Santa Fe, so we could start looking at, once that area is released, we could fully develop that area along Rancho Santa Fe. And that's going to include everything in the scope of work. Roadsides, traffic studies, drainage, you name it, it's all going to be a part of it, marketing programs, everything. For the other side, we're still looking at drainage, utilities, possible some traffic estimates. So we could go back and say, okay, even though we're not releasing that, we have the ability to go ahead and start marketing it. And in the future, when we go through the releasing, we could already have a lot of that ground base or infrastructure or study down in there. And the whole process of going through this again will not be as long and painful. We'll already have a lot of that study already done.
Well, where's the money coming from for those studies?
We went ahead and we looked at some of our projects, and what we end up, like, let's say the Taxiway Delta reconstruction project. We had around $250,000 budget in there, but the FAA was not going to be able to support that funding this year. So they asked us to push that project back till next fiscal year. So we still already had that money budgeted in the time because we're anticipating of getting that grant. So since that money's just sitting there, we went through the last council meeting and said, hey, we'll take the funding from this project for the construction side and we'll move it over to get this project moving forward. Same thing with the two roadway project, and I know Ben's not here. We had two roadways that were inside of the industrial park that looked like we were not going to be in a position to get that grant funding for that just yet. So we said, you know what, we could hold that project, push that project back till next year because we're not anticipating getting the grant for that project this year, and go ahead and take our share for that project and move that over into this one to get this one moving forward as soon as possible. So the total industrial park master development's around over $800,000. Is a lot of engineering. Our primary consultant for this is Kaufman Associates. Benefit to having them is that they are the primary consultant for the land release project. So they have the ability of already knowing what the FAA is requiring, so we don't do anything that could have the FAA sit back and say, no, there's a little bit of inconsistency here. They're there for the inconsistency, for the communication between all the other planners, and they're also very familiar with airport planning too. They went out there and they have sub-consultants, CNS companies. A lot of people, when they hear CNS, especially on the aviation side, they view them strictly as airport engineers. They're not. They're much more than just airport engineers. They also do industrial parks, residentials, commercial developments. So they have a whole nother section that I was even unaware about, that when I was speaking to them on the phone call, they already were in depth in knowing how to develop, market industrial parks. So their primary job is going to be the roadway, rail, grading, infrastructure engineering, and real estate marketing. Sunrise Engineering is going to be doing the water and wastewater infrastructure modeling. J.E. Fuller will be doing the stormwater and drainage. AECom will be the transportation planning analysis. Some of these companies have already done work for City of Kingman fairly recently, so they already have that information on hand. It's just adapting it for a future industrial park. And then Conoco, which did the preliminary cost estimates for this project. This is some of the items in the scope of work. Now, I know some people are sitting there asking, how did you come up with these items for the scope of work? We actually reached out to county and city departments that have the city ordinances, the planning, and then looking at the FAA's comments coming back. And that's how we developed the scope of work, through a technical advisory committee or TAC team. So we developed the scope of work when we did the RFP, and the contractor or the consultant came back with a scope of work for us, and here's how the scope of work's being laid out, or a really condensed down version. To prepare a conceptual site plan, that's for the western area, the EA land released area. That's going to be very detailed. The water master plan, that's for the full area. So once we get done with the development, we start going into either releasing or developing the other 1,100 acres. We'll already have that information available. Sanitary sewer master development plan, same, full site. Hydrologic study, master drainage study, traffic analysis, existing conditions, and project land use densities is going to be the full area, including the transportation model and the trip generation and distribution of traffic going in and out of the area is going to be for the full southern, western, and eastern sections. But as you start going down, you start getting a little bit more in-depth detail. Dry utility master plan, that's going to be in the western area. The land release to 700 acres. Roadway alignment and grading study will be in the 700 acres. And wherever you see these western areas, that's going to be the 700 acre land release. That's your bigger items that cost a lot more in the engineering aspect.
And again, where's that? Is that coming out of the airport budget?
Yes, sir. That is coming out of the airport budget because all this funding will be going right back into the airport as they sell this land, or if we lease this land, that funding will be going back to the airport. And then also on this opposite end, that blue section, if we do have any aeronautical users that wish to go ahead and move in there, we'll be able to market that area and get in additional aeronautical users. So we would get additional leasing through that. That's why a lot of these plans or these items also go into that blue section, is because we still want to have that readily available for future development with aeronautical. Now, this is where it kind of ties into the airport master drainage study. A lot of our water comes from this eastern side, southern side, and kind of southeastern side, and it moves northwest and it goes across the airfield. With this study, we're going to be addressing the hydraulic, the movement of the water going across that area, and then also future drainage. Now, CNS, who's a part of the master drainage study, could take that information, what's off-site, and apply it to what comes across the airfield and how the water's moving across the airfield, and basically take all the information from that project, use it with theirs to get much more accurate information to see where we can improve the drainage on the airfield. If we have something to where, let's just say through the industrial park master development plan, they wish to add an additional ditch, then CNS needs to go ahead and compensate for less amount of water, or is depending on how the ditch is laid out for additional amount of water cutting through a smaller corner of the airfield. So it helps them. You're just basically having two separate companies speak and coordinate with each other as they go through these studies. So we're trying to keep both these projects when it comes to industrial the industrial master plan and the master drainage study. We're going to try to get them to working side by side. Any questions?
I haven't heard you mention avigation easement. What's being done on that so far?
Now, with this actually right here, with this project, there will be avigation easements. You can't just build a large tower off the approach into the runway. So with this project, yeah, there will be an avigation easement placed in for the actual future development.
Dave may be talking about the other stuff that we visited last meeting, I guess it might have been as well. Is there any movement on that, or for the rest of the county property kind of thing as that goes? And
next meeting, we're going to go into a little bit more information about that. We've sat through a little course regarding navigational easements.
Okay.
Very recently, we're trying to get a hold of that video to possibly present it to you guys.
Okay.
We're trying to get all that information so we actually present it to you and let you see where the FAA stands and what other airports are doing. But we're still waiting on getting that video.
Clearly, before any construction starts taking place anywhere near the airport, we'd like to have the navigation easement nailed down so that it's part of law. And right now, I realize there's not a big rush to build near the airport, but we need to do that before any rush happens. So I for one, don't want to wait a long period of time before we get that done.
Yes, sir. We're going to get something. We're going to work on communicating with the different planners That's also one.
You're saying that's kind of a separate thing though, too, like if anybody new comes in here in this one, it's going to be clearly in their contracts of what's going on navigation easement-wise, and that's kind of separate from this other thing we were talking about with the other property around the,
This
Okay.
this is going to be separate from the industrial park
Right.
master development plan.
Okay.
The navigation easement, we have been sending our staff to training material to learn about that. We're also with our TAC meetings coming up with industrial park master development plan, which is tomorrow. We're also going to have those individuals from county zoning and planning in a room with us, including city planning, where we are going to bring that up to them about those sections of land. That's approximately over 1.5 miles from the approach end of the runway, and then also further north. And we're going to be speaking to them about that. But for next meeting, we'll have a little bit additional information in there about moving that forward.
Thank you. I know you have a users meeting coming up. Do you know when that is?
We're going to be moving that back a little bit towards January.
Okay.
Now, this is something I'm going to bring to your guys' attention, just to let you start looking at it and thinking about it. The Airport Advisory Industrial Park Commission is primarily tasked to look at, make sure the airport is following its, or complying with the airport master plan. And I shot out an email about the ASIP, attached that. Sorry, I forgot to bring a copy up here. Actually left it in another drive. That goes over the projects that have been approved by ADOT and by the FAA and by the city. The ASIP is the Airport Capital Improvement Program, is really a forecast of large projects that are going to go out for 5 years. And it helps everybody get an estimate of how much funding they need to look at saving up and planning for in the future, especially on the federal and state side, since if the feds pick up a project, they usually pick up about 91% of it. And then state and local usually splits that remainder. Now, if it is strictly ADOT usually picks up around 90%. There are some changes in there that could occur. And then locally, we have to pick up the other additional 10%. Now, these are just a few items right here in front of us that we're looking at for the 2029 and 2030 year. Just want to get this, guys, let you guys start eyeing these. And then next meeting, we'll present something a little bit more to provide possible discussion and recommendation of what's your higher priority for you. Now, these projects in here, I'm sorry, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. It's kind of difficult to see this, I know. Is going to be the blast pad construction. Blast pad is for large jets whenever they have to do their run-ups for maintenance purposes. In the past, if they did not properly position themselves on the northern end of the runway or northern end of taxiway Charlie, they would damage the taxiway safety area. They'll damage lights. So this blast pad is supposed to mitigate that. This little blast pad jet blasting testing area. Also other options that are thrown out there that we have not addressed yet is the airport beacon and primary wind cone. The primary wind cone separate from the secondary wind cones, moving that to just north of taxiway Alpha into this location, a little bit more center of the airfield. So with these list of projects, and also on the sheet right here in the report, also gives a list of other projects. Some of these projects are going to be much further out. I know a lot of people ask about a runway extension. I'm just going to be honest with you. We have approached the FAA multiple times, and the FAA just said, you're not there yet. You need a certain size aircraft. You need 500 operations, not just for storage, but actually moving in and out for them to even look at doing a runway feasibility study and then going through something called an EIS, environmental, I forgot the I section survey, which is a lot more in-depth than an EA.
Now, how do you know, or how does the FAA know how many operations we have? An operation is a departure or a landing.
Landing or takeoff. At
And-
this time,
And since we don't have a tower that keeps track of that, how do they know?
right now, the best way for us to actually get an idea estimates is by having somebody out there and actually clicking on every single time an aircraft lands over a short amount of time. And I'll be honest with you, is not the best in the world. So we're looking at other items. We
So
have
it's a
some.
guess.
Yeah, it really is. It's a really rough estimate.
And what is the estimate? What is the
I do
guess?
not have it right now. I do not have that on me right now. It's actually so vague, I'm not a big fan of it. So we are reaching out to companies to get estimates of some way how to either videotape these aircraft coming in to where we could go back and conduct the counts manually, or very similar to a license plate reader to where it will actually pick up the end number of the aircraft as they come in, touch down, and take off. And then from there, we're able to get that on a spreadsheet and get that information. We're actually seeking some estimates or quotes for having that technology installed at the airport.
And they're saying 500 during what period of time?
Over a year period, and it's gonna have to be
500
aircraft.
more over the course of a year?
No, it has to be a certain aircraft ADG, Aircraft Design Group.
Okay.
That's gonna be something.
So in other words, Paul needs big aircraft coming in to get work done at his shop, let's say.
You're looking at something about the size of a 737.
Okay.
737.
We thought we'd have 737 Maxes while they were shut down, stored here. Did we have any?
No, sir.
That also doesn't fall in that category because that's storage. They're talking about active movements in and out
Yes.
of flights, not coming into land and still be stored. That
Yeah,
doesn't really
but-
count.
But if it lands and it gets stored for a while and then takes off, that still
That
counts as two,
it could,
a
but
landing and a departure.
it's if you look at it from the FAA standpoint of trying to hand out that amount of funds, they're gonna like, okay, it's just landing, bare minimum, no weight, nothing. It's going to storage. It's not moving. It's not routinely coming in and out. Yeah, transport, actual active. Like give you an example about based aircraft. FAA does not view our stored aircraft as being based aircraft, even though we have 332 out there. When we speak to the FAA about saying, hey, can we use the based aircraft as, or the stored aircraft as based aircraft, because they are coming here, they are using our facilities. We're like, no, they're not constantly being active and being used. So they do not consider those as a part of based aircraft. If we could, it would be very helpful, but not in their facts and their figures and how they justify funding moving from airport to airport.
So essentially, our based aircraft are all GA,
Yes, sir.
with the exception of maybe the 2 helicopters and the flights that come in daily for UPS.
UPS would not be considered a based aircraft.
Right. Okay.
I mean,
But it is considered a flight in and flight out.
it is considered a flight in, flight out.
Okay.
We've, even when it comes to counting operations, we try to look at flight aware as an option. Only issue is that some pilots decide not to file a flight plan, so it's not registered in flight aware. Some aircraft decide to go ahead and hide their flights, so it doesn't pop up on flight aware. So it's just it's not accurate enough. So we are looking at these measures to actually install something to start picking up these end numbers and figure out a way. And even if that doesn't work, then we could always fall back to looking at installing a camera. And unfortunately, somebody's going to be sitting there once a day and watching it and counting each and every aircraft that touches down, takes off, or does a low approach.
Yeah.
It's very time consuming. That's why we're trying to get those estimates for others. So going with this, or going back to it, these are just some of the ideas that we're thinking about that we're going to be bringing up in the next meeting for possible discussions. But going down to it for hangar occupancy and wait list. A hangars, we have five aircraft hangars total. 5 are occupied, and we now have 6 on the wait list. B and C hangars, which is a little bit odd on this one. We have 30 total, only 28 are occupied. We have 2 vacant. And this is going to be a little bit odd. We have 16 people that are on the wait list, and we have 1 individual requesting relocation. Out of those 16 people on the wait list, 12 of them were not ready to move into the hangars. And at that time, we went through all 12 asking them, and then we were right back at the top of that 12. Fortunately, very recently, we've had 2 people that have came in that are going to be moving in from out of town that are stated that they're interested in those hangars. So we have basically told them we need you to start moving in, or at least be available to sign a lease within a certain amount of time. So we're anticipating before January of having both those hangars filled. For the D hangars, we have 1 that's available. We have 0 on the wait list at this time. And then for the cover tie downs, we have 2 available, only 8 are occupied. And this is also another odd one where we have 3 on the wait list. When we called up those 3 for those hangars, they said they're not ready to move in. They do not have an aircraft at this time, or their aircraft is not here. For the budget, this only goes back to October, because we don't get the November's everything finalized, or at least to get that information in till December 15th. So in October, our revenue was the $579,864, and expenses was $305,726. For the revenue for the airport was the 550, and this is where I told you I'm getting old and I'm starting to slowly be able to not read or can't see the numbers. 516,602 with industrial park bringing in $63,864. And right below that is the expenses. In October, we only went through 14% of the airport's operating and maintenance budget. That will go up, especially when we start looking at the crack ceiling. The crack ceiling is going to be around $30,000. We are also looking at fixing some of the gates. We are also ordering some additional parts for our hangars. Should one of our hangars go down, then we'll have additional motors, so forth, available to replace those motors inside the hangar doors.
What are some of the examples of, on the industrial park, the revenue?
The revenue is leased locations. The revenue is also through the Kingman rail service. We actually own the rail service. They pay us a certain amount for each rail cart that comes through. So we do gain revenue through those locations.
Okay. Thank you.
We do try to keep that stuff separate so we can keep it going towards, let's say, maintaining the front of the park down Mojave Industrial Drive, and then every now and then when a tree gets old and starts breaking down, then we start removing that ourselves. So a lot of those funds go into there. For the fuel cells, actual fuel cells are up on the board. We start seeing an increase in Jet A there at one point, and we believe that is due to the aircraft storage. We've had an increase in aircraft storage because they're taking a lot of the regional jets out of service, either pilot shortage or the aircraft are now getting fairly old. I read one little study, I don't know how true it is, but it was pretty interesting discussing about a lot of the regional carriers are trying to move towards much more fuel-efficient aircraft. So a good bit are kind of going in anticipation of a modified E190 that's already being used throughout Europe and so forth. That's extremely fuel efficient. A more modified version for the U.S. And then also some air carriers or regional carriers are looking at going back to turboprops. So they're taking those out, plus a lot of the regional carriers, pilots are being stole by the main lines because the main lines are actually having a pilot shortage.
How many planes do we currently have?
Approximately 332.
332.
And does anybody have any questions about the report?
I
Oh, I
noticed-
apologize if I forgot to share that. I'm sorry.
So is there any revenue, generated based on the fuel sales?
It is fairly minor.
Okay,
It's around 4 cents.
okay.
Fuel flowage fees, usually right now the industrial average is, industry average is around 10 cents. The individuals that our original FBO was locked in a pretty lengthy contract where it remained 4 cents for a while, and that contract will not expire till around 2029.
I thought it was 3 cents.
It's 4 cents.
It's 4,
4 cents.
so it has gone up.
It has not gone up. When we went back and we reviewed it, it was 4 cents.
Then somebody lied to us a long time ago.
And for Mr. Beller's information, and Brandon, I don't know if I ever, mentioned this to you in the past. I think you attended one of the Citizens Academy meeting where we were showing a demonstration of where a lot of the airport revenue comes from. The aircraft storage, our airport is extremely fortunate. To where we're a great place to store aircraft. And a good chunk of that revenue that we use for operations and maintenance and we use for our capital projects come through the stored aircraft. That's where majority of our revenue comes from. And that allows our general aviation airport to be self-sufficient. For general aviation airports to be self-sufficient is very rare unless they're considered a GA reliever right next to a large city, or they have some type of major 145 facility or maintenance facility on site that how can I say, leases a lot of land. So through those aircraft stores, that is the primary where we pay for our maintenance and operations. And then also with the land sales, any land sale that occurs, that revenue comes back to the airport. We have 5 years to spend it. And that's what we target for our larger projects. Let's just give a demonstration. Let's say the taxiway Delta reconstruction project. When that kicks off, hopefully next fiscal year, federal fiscal year, our share is going to be around $200,000. So we'll take one of those land sales in the past that we've done where we generate around $200,000 and we'll apply that to match it.
And to be clear, we go back and use the oldest first so that we don't
Lose it.
Lose it.
Right.
So we often, like whenever you hear about the land sale monies, as soon as we sell the land, we're immediately looking for one of those large scale capital projects to plug that into, to help us from going into our other revenues, such as our storage aircraft, our leasing revenue. Due to the fact it's not a land sale, we're able to keep that in our coffers long-term, and if we want to use it for a larger project, whereas these, we only have it for a minimum amount of time.
Okay. Thank you.
And there are certain things that the FAA will not give us money for, additional, on a sharing basis. They won't give us money for hangars. They won't give us money for shade, parking. If we wanted a wash rack, I don't think they fund that.
The FAA will fund that, but the only way they'll fund that if your airport has, perfect. Everything's perfect. Your taxiways are perfect. You're meeting all compliance. I mean, it's just solid perfect across the board. Then they may look at entertaining funding one of those items. But when they're looking at it, and when you look at our capital improvements, sections of the ramp, the reconstruction of taxiway Delta, which will require some modifications in geometry, that's much more higher on their list than a hangar or a new fuel farm.
Thank
We
you.
got a long way to go.
Right. Yeah, a lot of opportunities.
It's rare for the FAA to pick up a hangar. Let's put it that way. It's very rare.
Is there anything else that, staff reports?
No, sir.
Any questions for Manager Breckenridge?
Manager Breckenridge, I've got one question. On the 5-year capital program, improvement program, you've got these items listed. Are they listed in any particular order, or like a priority order, or no?
No, sir, the proposed section in here, we are gonna give you guys something as a new item, new business next meeting, so you can sit back and look at it. But on that actual list, that ASIP list that states, I think, 2023 through 2028, that is the actual order in years and priority that was given, and that ADOT and ADOT has signed off on it. The FAs in the process are reviewing it too on their end. But for the future, we are going to be reaching out to you guys about looking at future projects around 2029, 2030 for your recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Do some of those projects possibly include like the power station stuff, like the renewables for battery powered aircraft?
That is one thing we're very much interested in. This is advanced air mobility. Give you guys a little bit of idea about changes in the actual industry. A lot of people have been hearing about advanced air mobility. That will be VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing. A lot of these aircraft are being really focused on inside of major cities. So let's just say if you want to travel across LA, you could literally just call up almost like a taxi, or go to a VTOL site, hop in one of these smaller aircraft, and they'll basically do a vertical takeoff, take you to your location or a nearby vertiport, and drop you off. A lot of these airlines have also been very interested in them too. They're viewing them as a standpoint of, forgive me, I'm not 100% familiar with, let's say, Los Angeles or Las Vegas, so I kind of have to use Atlanta, Georgia, because the airport's on the very southern end. Let's just say if you're in one of the very northern towns in the suburbs, you could go to your smaller G airport, hop in one of these aircrafts that has a dedicated contract with the airline, and then it will vertically take you off, take you to Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, drop you there, instead of you have to fight with city traffic. It will expedite the process. A lot of these aircraft are pushing green. They are going to be electric. One that we've been kind of looking at, because they're really on the front page right now, is Joby Aviation, because their aircraft, their vertical takeoff aircraft, is really quiet. And they're estimating for electric aircraft right now, it's going to get about 150 miles before it has to sit down and charge. The FAA has recently published an AC on these items, on these actual vertiports for general aviation airports, to install at general aviation airports. So we're looking into this. At the same time, we're speaking to one group that has worked with Joby in the past, try to figure out what these companies are looking for, because we're kind of in a good location. This is looking at for our marketing plan that we've been working with economic development. We're just now really kicking this off. This may be a good place to make it kind of a central facility where they're moving in between, let's say, Phoenix and Vegas, or going over to LA. That will be a good spot. And one of those ideas were, well, what about future installation of solar panels out there? Say, hey, we have the land, we have the area, we can look at what your electrical needs are, and just really figure out a green marketing program to attract one of those companies, because they are pushing green. So having that green idea and trying to figure that out, how to actually implement it, what our options are, what are they looking for, and once we actually start gaining and obtaining all that information, then we can start looking at, okay, they're going to need this much solar panels, we're nearby, how can we get it? It's going to require this much charging. So we are looking into that. We are. And that is something that we're going through. It's very time consuming, because Joby's keeping everything to the chest, and also a lot of further other companies are keeping it really close to their chest, because it's such a new market, and whoever gets there first is going to just really take it over in a lot of these cities, because these airlines are vesting into these companies. They are seeing the benefits. They are seeing also the benefits of instead of driving from Kingman to LA or from Kingman to Las Vegas, you could just hop in one of these and go directly there.
Basically, your own personal helicopter in a way.
Just about. They're they're going to be fairly expensive. There has been talks of some cheaper ones going out there, but they just do not have the range. These others, and doing further research, they are going to require commercial pilot's license to actually fly these for commercially. So I was really happy about that. I was worried about somebody be able to purchase it and just put it in their backyard, and the FAA is putting some restrictions on that. And then also one bigger upside is these companies do realize nobody wants to hear a whining, buzzing noise going over their house. So if you ever take time, and at some point I may actually grab one of these videos and let you listen to how quiet some of these aircraft are. It's really going to change the transportation industry.
And how do you spell the name of that company you said that's looking?
The one that we're introduced, we actually they didn't go into too much detail in one marketing or one, how could I say, General Aviation Airport Management Operations kind of seminar was Joby Aviation, Joby.
Joby, okay.
Yeah, that's the one that they demonstrated. It really popped out because it was so quiet.
Okay.
There are several others out there. Even in Europe, they have about 2 or 3 companies that are really pushing this forward. But per your question is, we are keeping an eye on that. We are trying to figure out how we could possibly find ourselves or put ourselves in a position by making the airport green and saying, hey, we have a green place for our aircraft to be maintained, that have access to these larger cities, and we know that our power is coming through a clean location. There's just not that much information out there right now on what their requirements are. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments for Manager Breckenridge? And we'll move ahead to announcements by commission members. We'll start with those that are not here. Commissioner Stutzman, do you have anything to add, to discuss?
Oh, that's negative.
Commissioner Gerlach, do you have anything?
No, I have nothing today.
I don't have anything.
Nothing, no thank you.
Nothing for me.
Well, I guess I'm the only one. Last Saturday, a week ago Saturday, the Experimental Aircraft Association did a Young Eagles rally at Bullhead. We were invited to do one in Bullhead, and we successfully flew 40 kids for their first flight. And a young man called me up on Sunday and said, I have already contacted Sporties, and they've sent me the ground school, and I've been studying it. And when I invited him to attend our meeting of our chapter that occurred this past Saturday, and he's already passed his first of 4 tests.
Wow.
So he's on his way to becoming a pilot, and that makes me very pleased. On another subject, I'll be flying an Angel flight to Phoenix out of Bullhead this Thursday. And that's all I've got. I'm sorry? We flew 40 kids with 3 planes.
Wow.
It was an interesting morning. And the Angel flight will be taking a gentleman from Bullhead who has leukemia to the Mayo Clinic. With that said, yes?
Actually, sorry, Chair, I forgot one item. The Arizona Pilots Association is implementing a passport program This passport program involves installing these QR codes in airports throughout Arizona. And for pilots, they could go online to the Arizona Pilots Association and sign up for this. And as you go to general aviation airports that have these QR codes, you could go in there with your phone, hit the QR code, and it'll show you registering for these airports. It also does this for museums, and it also does it for restaurants located at airports. We have one of the QR codes which are located inside of our pilot's lounge. They did send out an email last week that they were working on getting some additional QR codes. One will be for our restaurants. And as these pilots come in and as they start going through these QRs and signing up at these different airports, as the more you sign up for, you get points. And then they will give you an award, either being something small as a hat to a pilot's jacket. So we're waiting to get that last QR code in, and then we're going to be putting these exact locations of these QR codes on our website for pilots who are flying into our airport to get them to entice them to come in.
Thank you.
Manager Breckenridge, on that, you said that they're going to have like, they can have the QR code and they can learn of all the local restaurants you're saying that we have in Kingman, is that what you're saying?
No, just the ones inside the airport.
I got
Airport
you.
cafe. The purpose of them, is to get them to come to the actual visit other airports instead of going to their routine stops. They
Okay.
want them to fly throughout Arizona.
Yeah.
I had a thought pop into my head. I'm like Pokemon, you got to catch all the airports.
Pretty much.
At this point, I guess if we're done, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Hey, do we want to sit here
I'll make a
all night?
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. It's been moved that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. We're adjourned.